The soft hum of the spacecraft filled the cabin as Talia, a young alien from the planet Orevon, carefully inspected the human artifacts scattered across the storage bay. Her lavender skin glowed faintly under the ship's lights, and her 3 delicate fingers traced the edges of the strange devices with curiosity. Humans were so unpredictable, she often thought, and their gadgets even more so. "This one looks fun," she murmured, picking up a small cylindrical object. It was smooth, shiny, and had buttons along its side. Talia had seen humans play with similar items before in videos the crew had shared, but she had never held one herself. Her eyes sparkled with excitement as she rotated it between her fingers. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Marcus, the human officer assigned to Orevon research, noticed her fascination. He leaned against the bulkhead, arms crossed, a wry smile on his face. "Careful, Talia, that's not exactly a toy." Talia froze. "Not a toy?" she asked, cocking her head in confusion. "But it looks like the playthings you humans bring to your children." Marcus chuckled softly. "Well, in a way it is a toy, but it's a very special one. Humans don't just play with it for fun." Her eyes widened. "Special? How special?" Marcus hesitated for a moment, realizing he needed to explain carefully. "It's part of how humans reproduce. It helps create life in a safe and private way." Talia's jaw practically dropped. The word reproduce alone made her feel a mixture of astonishment and embarrassment. She had studied human biology in simulations and through observation, but seeing the device in her own hands made it entirely real. "Reproduce?" she whispered. "You mean babies?" Marcus nodded, trying to maintain a professional tone despite the awkwardness. "Yes, humans have several ways to make babies, and this is one of the more modern tools. It's completely normal, safe, and common." Talia's 3 eyes blinked rapidly. "Normal, you mean every human uses it?" "Not every human," Marcus corrected gently. "Some use it, some don't. But it's not strange or wrong to use it." Talia set the device down slowly, still staring at it as if it had transformed into a mythical object. "I thought this would... a toy," she said again, almost in disbelief. "I've seen your games and your instruments, but nothing looked like this." Marcus smiled, trying to ease her tension. "Humans are weird like that. Sometimes the line between fun and serious is blurry." Talia shook her head, still confused. She could not wrap her mind around the fact that humans used objects for something so intimate. On Orevon, reproduction was a natural biological process that involved careful rituals and bonding. Devices had never been part of it. You mean you don't? Naturally. She paused, unsure how to phrase the question politely. "You don't just naturally do it?" Marcus laughed softly. "Well, sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. Humans like choices. And sometimes devices help when natural ways are difficult." Talia's mind spun. So many things she had assumed about humans were being turned upside down in one small moment. Difficult. Like what? She asked cautiously, curious despite her embarrassment. "Well," Marcus said, "not all humans can create life easily. Some need extra help. This device is one of the tools that makes sure the process works." Talia exhaled slowly, processing. On Orevon, the idea of needing help to reproduce was almost unheard of. Life usually happened naturally and complications were rare. Here, though, humans had invented solutions, and now she held one of those solutions in her hands. Her curiosity overcame her initial shock. She picked the device up again, turning it over, pressing one of the buttons gently. It made a soft whirring sound. "It hums," she said, intrigued despite herself. "Like it's alive." Marcus nodded. "Yeah, it's designed to be friendly and safe. Humans are careful about these things." Talia studied the device, her mind racing with possibilities. Could it really create life? Could a human show her how it worked? She felt a sudden urge to understand everything. Humans were strange, yes, but also fascinating. Their ways of making life, their technology, their choices. It was all so different from her own world. The door to the storage bay slid open, and Commander Riel, Talia's superior, stepped in. He was tall and imposing, with shimmering silver scales that reflected the ship's lights. "What are you doing, Talia?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. I'm examining a human device," she said carefully. "I thought it was a toy, but it seems it is not." Riel's antennae twitched. "A human device? Are you sure it's safe?" Marcus reassured him. "Completely safe. It's meant for humans and can't harm anyone if used correctly." Riel's eyes narrowed, a mixture of curiosity and caution. Humans and their strange inventions. I suppose it is fascinating to observe, at least. Talia held the device close to her chest. Fascinating, yes. But shocking. I never imagined humans would invent such a thing. Marcus smiled at her wide-eyed expression. That's the thing about humans. We always find new ways to do things, even things you might think are private or personal. Sometimes it's strange, sometimes it's amazing. Talia slowly nodded. Amazing, yes. But also confusing. I must learn how this works. Not to use it myself, of course. I am just curious. Marcus raised an eyebrow, hiding a grin. Curiosity is the first step toward understanding, Talia. I can explain how it works in theory if you want. Her 3 eyes lit up. Yes, please. Explain everything. Marcus leaned against the wall and began to describe the human reproductive system, explaining in careful, simple words how life was created, how humans use technology to assist, and why privacy and consent were so important. Talia listened intently, asking questions at every opportunity. It's very different from Orevan, she said finally after a long pause. We do not need devices. Everything is natural, ceremonial, connected to life energies. Humans invent machines to help. That's right, Marcus said with a nod. Humans are clever that way. We make tools to make life easier, even if they seem strange at first. Talia looked down at the device once more, turning it gently in her hands. It no longer seemed just a strange object. It was a symbol of human ingenuity, something that could help life continue, even when nature was unpredictable. And for the first time, she felt a kind of respect for the species she had studied so long from a distance. I understand now, she said softly. It is not a toy, it is important, Marcus smiled. Exactly. And knowing how it works doesn't make it less serious. It makes it fascinating. Talia set the device down carefully as if it were a precious artifact. She looked up at Marcus, her expression a mix of wonder and admiration. Humans are very different, but perhaps not so strange after all, Marcus nodded. Not strange, just unique. That's what makes us interesting. For the rest of the afternoon, Talia stayed in the storage bay asking questions, observing, and slowly understanding a part of human life she had once thought impossible. What started as a moment of shock turned into fascination, and for the first time, she realized that humans were capable of surprising even the most knowledgeable aliens. And somewhere deep inside, she felt a spark of curiosity that would not fade. She wanted to know more, not just about the device, but about humans themselves, their choices, their inventions, and the lives they lived. By the time the ship's lights dimmed for the evening, Talia was still awake, carefully placing the device back in its case. She whispered to herself, almost as if speaking to the universe, "Humans, you are full of surprises, and I want to learn them all." The next morning, the spacecraft's hum seemed softer, almost welcoming. Talia floated through the corridors with a sense of purpose. Her lavender skin shimmered faintly under the lights, and her 3 fingers brushed over the handrails as she walked. Yesterday's discovery had left her mind buzzing. That human device, small, metallic, and surprisingly intricate, had opened a door to a world she had only studied from afar. Marcus noticed her thoughtful expression as she entered the common area. "Good morning, Talia," he said, leaning casually against the wall. "You look more awake than usual." Talia blinked, her 3 eyes narrowing slightly as she regarded him. "I have been thinking," she admitted, her voice soft, "about the device and how humans use such tools. It is fascinating. I wish to understand more." Marcus raised an eyebrow, a smile tugging at his lips. "More, huh? Well, that's not surprising. Curiosity is a powerful thing, especially in someone like you." Talia tilted her head. "Curiosity, you mean? It is normal to want to understand even personal things." Marcus laughed lightly. "Absolutely. Humans respect curiosity as long as it is respectful. Wanting to learn is how we improve, how we create new tools, how we survive." Her 3 eyes widened with wonder. "Survive?" she echoed. "You mean, even for reproduction, humans think about survival and make tools to help life continue?" "That's right," Marcus said. "Life is precious. Sometimes nature is unpredictable. Humans invent ways to help life continue safely, even when challenges arise." Talia nodded slowly, absorbing his words. She had always thought of Orevan rituals as flawless, almost sacred. The idea that life could face difficulty and that technology could step in to help was Remarkable. Later that day, Talia returned to the storage bay. She carried the small device carefully, her fingers almost cradling it. Marcus followed, sensing her determination. "Do you want to see how it works?" he asked gently. Talia hesitated for a moment. "I do not mean to use it," she said quickly, as if to ward off any misunderstanding. "I only wish to observe, to understand the human mind." Marcus nodded. "Observation is the first step. I can explain the theory and then we can run simulations. You will not have to do anything unsafe." Talia's eyes sparkled. "Simulations, yes!" "That would be perfect." Marcus led her to a small, secure laboratory aboard the ship. Screens lined the walls displaying data streams, holographic models, and interactive diagrams. A simulation console rested in the center, with various controls and projection devices. "This is how humans test and study devices safely," Marcus explained. "You can see how it works without actually using it yourself." Talia stepped closer, her 3 eyes scanning the holographic displays. The device hovered in the air in a projected image, showing its internal mechanisms. Tiny gears spun, energy flowed along miniature circuits, and simulated life forms reacted to the process. It really creates conditions for life," Talia whispered, awe in her voice. "Even in simulation, it seems." "Alive," Marcus nodded. "Yes, humans are clever. We combine biology and technology to create solutions. Sometimes nature needs a little help, and we provide it." Talia leaned closer to the console. "The way you humans think, it is very different from Aurivon. We rely on natural energy flows, rituals, and bonding. You create machines to help life. Ingenious." Marcus smiled. "We are always learning, always experimenting. Humans survive because we adapt. Tools like this are just one example." The simulation continued, showing different scenarios. Humans with various biological challenges, simulations of success and failure, and ways the device could safely assist. Talia watched intently, taking mental notes. "Fascinating," she murmured. "Even when things go wrong, humans find a way. On Aurivon, mistakes in reproduction are rare, but here, you invent to correct the unpredictable. You fight uncertainty with ingenuity." Marcus nodded. "Exactly. That's one of the things I wanted you to see. Humans value life, and we do what we can to protect it." Talia paused, looking at the holographic projection of the device. "I admire this. Not just the tool, but the thinking behind it. Humans, you are very different, but clever, creative, and caring." "I did not expect to feel respect so quickly," Marcus chuckled. "You humans, wait, you aliens, give respect easily when it's earned." "And this is impressive." Talia felt a small warmth of pride. She had come to study humans as an outsider, curious and cautious. Now she felt a connection, a bridge between her world and theirs. Observation had become understanding. Hours passed and Talia experimented with the simulation. She adjusted variables, watched the holographic reactions, and learned how slight changes could affect outcomes. Marcus guided her gently, explaining concepts without overwhelming her. "This is very different from Aurivon," she said again after a long pause. "The way you combine logic, biology, and invention, it is beautiful. Even your mistakes are lessons." Marcus nodded. "That's one of the things humans excel at. We adapt, learn, and improve. Even when life is fragile, we try to make it safe." Talia smiled faintly. "I think I understand now. Not the device itself, but the philosophy. Humans cherish life. You value survival and creativity equally. That is remarkable." Marcus leaned against the console, watching her with quiet amusement. "You have learned well, and you've realized something important. Humans are unpredictable, yes, but also resilient and clever. That's why we survive." Talia set the device carefully on a nearby table, her fingers lingering over it. "I thought it was a toy," she whispered to herself. "But it is a symbol of human ingenuity and care." Marcus smiled softly. "Exactly. And understanding is the first step toward respect. You see humans not just as strange creatures, but as thinkers, creators, and protectors of life." Talia's 3 eyes shimmered with newfound fascination. I want to learn more. About you, your inventions, your ways of thinking, not just for science, but to understand your heart," Marcus nodded. "And that is the key to HFY, Talia. Humans are more than biology. They are creativity, intelligence, and persistence. That's why we matter." The day ended, and Talia left the laboratory with a sense of accomplishment. Her mind was alive with new ideas, and the device, once a mystery, now symbolized something far greater. Humans had surprised her, and she felt the beginnings of admiration and respect. As she floated through the ship's corridors, Talia whispered softly, almost to herself, "Humans, you are full of surprises, and I want to know every one of them." The stars outside the spacecraft glimmered, distant and cold, yet full of promise. Talia's journey of understanding had only begun. She realized that life, invention, and care were deeply connected, and humans, strange, unpredictable humans, embodied all of them in ways that Oravan could never replicate. By the time she returned to her quarters, she felt a quiet determination. The device, the simulations, the lessons Marcus shared, everything pointed to a single truth: humans were extraordinary. Not because of strength or speed or ritual, but because of ingenuity, resilience, and the unyielding desire to protect life. Talia curled up in her sleeping pod, her mind buzzing with curiosity and ideas. Tomorrow she would learn more. There were other devices, other human inventions, other ways to see life through the eyes of a species both fascinating and brilliant. And somewhere deep inside, a new appreciation had taken root, a respect for humans not as aliens to study, but as equals in creativity, intelligence, and care. The next morning, Talia awoke with a sense of excitement she had never felt before. The events of the previous days, the discovery of the device, the lessons from Marcus, and the hours of simulation had sparked a curiosity that was no longer simple fascination. It was understanding, and now she wanted to see humans' ingenuity in action. Marcus was waiting in the storage bay, holding a small tablet. "Good morning, Talia," he said with a grin. "Ready for the next step?" Talia nodded eagerly. "Yes, I want to see humans at work. Not just their devices, but how they think, plan, and create." Marcus led her to a larger lab in the heart of the spacecraft. This one was filled with more advanced human inventions, medical devices, environmental simulators, and a few experimental machines that hummed softly with energy. The air smelled faintly of metal and ozone. "This lab is where we test and refine our tools," Marcus explained. "Not all of them are complete, but they show human ingenuity. Observation is safe here, but you'll see creativity in motion." Talia's three eyes widened as she scanned the room. Every device had a story, every simulation a lesson. She was no longer a distant observer. She was part of a human learning process. Marcus activated a holographic display in the center of the room. A tiny human figure appeared, surrounded by simulated devices. "We can run a scenario," he said. "It shows how humans solve problems step by step. You can see how we think logically, but also creatively." Talia leaned forward, fascinated. The holographic figure moved through a series of challenges, simulated medical emergencies, environmental hazards, and a few reproductive scenarios. Every time a problem appeared, the human figure interacted with devices using knowledge, trial and error, and clever adjustments to succeed. "It is amazing," Talia whispered. "Every problem, every obstacle. You humans overcome it not with strength but with thought and invention. And care, always care," Marcus smiled. "That's HFY in action. Humans may not be the strongest or the fastest, but our mind, our creativity, and our determination, that's what sets us apart." Talia studied the holographic human carefully. "It is beautiful. On Oravan, we rely on rituals and energy. Here, you rely on your intelligence and your tools. But both ways. Life is cherished," Marcus nodded. "Exactly. And humans combine logic, care, and imagination. That's why we survive, even in the harshest conditions." Talia's curiosity led her to pick up a smaller device on a nearby table. Unlike the reproductive device, this one was meant for environmental regulation. A machine that could purify water and generate oxygen efficiently. She turned it over, pressed a button, and watched the holographic demonstration of its function. "Every device has a purpose," she murmured. "And every purpose protects life, even this, not for reproduction but still vital. Humans, you think of everything." Marcus watched her expression, noticing her growing admiration. "Humans have to be adaptable. We face challenges constantly, so we invent to survive. It's not just about tools, it's about thinking ahead, solving problems, and making life better for everyone." Talia's mind raced. She realized now that the reproductive device was only a part of a larger human philosophy, Humans valued life in all forms, and their inventions were extensions of their care and intelligence. "Marcus," she said thoughtfully, "I wish to assist. Not in using the devices, but in observing, learning, and contributing. Can I?" Marcus's eyes lit up. "Of course, Talia, that's the best way to learn. Humans improve when others contribute. Your perspective as an alien is actually very valuable." Talia smiled faintly. "Then, let us begin." For the next several hours, she worked alongside Marcus, observing experiments, analyzing simulations, and offering ideas based on Audiobook principles. Sometimes she suggested small adjustments that improved the efficiency of devices, blending her natural instincts with human logic. Marcus nodded, impressed by her insights. "You're a fast learner," he said. "And your ideas, they're creative. Humans sometimes overlook simplicity, but you don't." Talia's 3 eyes shimmered. "I have respect for humans, your devices, your thinking, your care. It is inspiring. I thought I came here to study you, but I am learning from you." Marcus chuckled. "And that's how humans work best. We inspire and learn from each other, even from someone completely different." As the day progressed, Talia became more confident. She examined the reproductive device again, now understanding its function fully. She could see the thought process behind it, the care humans took to make it safe and effective. It was no longer shocking, it was brilliant. "Marcus," she said softly, "I understand now. The device, it is not just a tool. It is a reflection of your species. Clever, careful, creative, and always thinking of life." Marcus nodded, a hint of pride in his expression. "Exactly. And that's what makes humans special. Not our strength, not our speed, but our minds, our creativity, and our compassion." Talia turned her gaze toward the window of the spacecraft. The stars outside stretched endlessly, cold and distant. Yet inside she felt warmth and connection. She had begun to understand humans, not just their tools, but their philosophy, their determination, their ability to care deeply while creating solutions. I admire you," she whispered. "Not only for your devices, but for your spirit. On Audiobook we have rituals, traditions. But humans, you invent, adapt, and care at the same time. That is extraordinary." Marcus smiled, placing a hand gently on the console. "That's the essence of HFY. Humans matter because we think, because we create, and because we value life. And now you see it clearly." Talia set the reproductive device carefully back on its platform, her mind at ease. The shock that had gripped her on the first day had transformed into respect, understanding, and admiration. Humans were no longer a curiosity. They were a species worthy of fascination and even inspiration. As the spacecraft drifted through the stars, Talia looked at Marcus and said, "Thank you for showing me, not just the device, but your people. I have learned more than I could have imagined, and I feel something new, respect, admiration, perhaps friendship." Marcus nodded. "You're welcome, Talia. And that's the greatest part of this journey. Understanding, connection, and learning from each other. That's what humans, and maybe even aliens, do best." Talia smiled faintly, her heart light. She had begun her mission to study humans, but she had gained something far more valuable: insight into a species that thrived not just through strength, but through thought, creativity, and care. The stars stretched endlessly beyond the ship, silent witnesses to her revelation. In that quiet moment, Talia understood a fundamental truth: humans were extraordinary. Not because they were perfect or the strongest or the fastest, but because they dared to think, create, and protect life. And somewhere deep within her, Talia felt a spark, a desire to continue learning, observing, and growing alongside humans. She had discovered not just a device, but a philosophy, not just a species, but a world of ingenuity and heart. As the spacecraft sailed onward, Talia whispered softly to herself, "Humans, you are remarkable, and I am glad to have met you." For the first time, she truly believed it.